how did you honor the right path for yourself because it looked like it was so diverse?
Yeah, I would say listen. Listen to that voice. If something is nagging at you and you feel like you have more to contribute and your voice, there's a larger voice in you that wants to be expressed, listen, find good people to talk to, find mentors, find good friends, find people whose path or whose way of being, whose expression you do perceive to be full and authentic. Talk to them and start to get ideas, but give voice to that voice inside you that's nagging at you, saying, there's more for you to do here. There's more for you to contribute.
Hey friends, welcome to Right Off Track, your favorite entrepreneurial resource where we dive into the mindset, strategy, and purpose of entrepreneurs around the world who are sharing their real stories and insights with you. I believe that we all have a unique purpose in life, and that embracing our unique and special journey will help uncover that. If this helps you on your journey, I so welcome your support as we grow and improve this channel. Join us, subscribe. I promise you, I'm fully dedicated to making this work better every step of the way. So share your feedback, subscribe, share with a friend, and let's go on this adventure together right off track. Enjoy this episode.
Going off track is taking a chance on yourself.
Following your pulse of curiosity.
It's making your own decisions.
The most wonderful adventure.
Hey friends, welcome to another episode of Right Off Track with Anya Smith. Today, we're venturing into an exciting corner of the entrepreneurial world where teamwork and innovation meet. We're talking about AwakeTeams, a platform that's redefining the way we work, making more about connection and collaboration, less about the daily grind. With AwakeTeams hailing as the GSV Cup Elite 200 world's most innovative edtech company and a startup to watch by Startup Grind, Laura is reshaping how we think about team dynamics. Let's give a warm welcome to Laura. So excited to have you here.
Hey, Anya, great to be here with you.
My absolute pleasure. I know it took us a little bit of time to get this scheduled, but here we are. I am very curious, how have things been? The last time we chatted, there was this very innovative work happening. You were growing the team. A lot of exciting things were happening behind the scenes. Where are you now with everything?
Yeah, thank you for asking. So we are in market, as you know, with AwakeTeams. And so AwakeTeams develops interpersonal skills within workplace teams. So teams of 4 to 10 people who actually depend on each other to some extent for success, go on this learning journey together. Series of 3-month modules. And so the most exciting news is the White House Leadership Development Program team completed the first 3-month module, and they've just started the second 3-month module. So they did their trust building module, and now they've just kicked off in the communications module. And these are the foundational. So year one, the third for year one is collaboration. And so that's very exciting. And then I have a law firm in process. I'm speaking with a couple of other law firms. Northwestern Mutual has completed the trust, and we're now queuing them up to move on to the communications module. So lots of good traction, and customers just so after, so long ideating, creating, building, getting to market to actually be interacting with customers and having data to see that it's working and making an impact is just amazing.
Ooh. And can you tell our listeners a little bit about how things even came about? Like, what is a little bit of your background that led you into this exciting space where you are right now?
Yeah, so I started my career in consumer packaged goods brand management. So that was like the Colgate, Unilever. I also worked on M&M's was actually my initial brand. And I worked, I have an international MBA. So I was able to work internationally in that field, lived in Europe for a number of years. And finished at Unilever in a global role. So did what I set out to do, wanted to do. And I made a big pivot and transitioned over to the nonprofit sector. And why did I do that? So a couple of reasons. One was, for me personally, this voice was getting louder and louder in me. Like, what is the meaning? What am I doing with my talent? What am I actually contributing to? And does it have personal meaning for me? And then also the corporate culture, like reckoning that for myself, there were parts of me I left at the door, and I put on some kind of corporate armor, like armoring on myself to perform and function in those competitive environments. And So transitioned to nonprofit, and I landed at an amazing nonprofit on the leadership team. It's called the Brain and Behavior Research Foundation. Leads directly into what I'm doing today. So I learned a tremendous amount about neuroscience. It's a philanthropic grant giving foundation, funds innovative neuroscientists who need proof of concept funding before they often go on to get very large NIH grants. And my most important role really was to translate the research so philanthropists would give more money. They would understand the impact of what they were actually funding. And in that process, I learned so much about the brain and our potential as human beings. So neuroplasticity, that the brain is changing structurally and functionally throughout our lifetime, and that we can influence how that's happening, what kind of networks are we reinforcing or creating, and what it takes for lasting behavior change. And I decided, after I stayed for a number of years there, and then decided I want to take this back to the corporate world. I have a lot of skin in the game in the corporate world. The corporate world, also corporate culture, impacts most of our systems: economic, political, cultural, socioeconomic, and sometimes it is not having a positive impact. And I think it could be a much more productive, positive impact in the world, and that it's just people inside corporations. It's just human beings, right? Even if the legal system says corporations are people, they're not. It's human beings inside who are making the decisions and contributing their talent. So I decide, I had this idea that corporate culture was this fixed static thing, and I needed to remove myself and just find a different fixed static thing that was better. And it's not. There is no fixed static thing. And I became a trainer in emotional intelligence. So I'm certified in a very well-known program, did a lot of training at tech companies that you named, at LinkedIn and what was then Facebook and Dropbox and Uber, and then kept bumping into a frustration on the part of the buyers of those programs, who would say, we never know what actually happened. There's no data. So our people want this kind of upskilling. They know they need emotional intelligence to be managers, to advance in their career. We read the research, we're willing to invest in it. We do invest in this. We spend a lot of money on, quote, soft skills training, but we never know what actually happened. And so during COVID, I decided they're right. I'm going to figure out how to solve for this. And that's really the biggest differentiator of AwakeTeams, is that we develop interpersonal skills. It is a training program that's online, that's tech enabled. And over the course of those 3 months, we measure what's happening with the skills that are being developed, and what's happening with team performance. So every month there's a progress report.
Oh, I love that. I love data between you and me. And what I want to talk to before we dive into the amazing work happening here is that you mentioned that you transitioned and made a lot of changes, right? So you went out of corporate at first. You said, like, I want to pursue something more. What advice would you give to some people who are thinking, hey, I want to do something different? Like, how did you honor the right path for yourself, because it looked like it was so diverse?
Yeah, I would say listen to that voice. If something is nagging at you and you feel like you have more to contribute, and your voice, there's a larger voice in you that wants to be expressed, listen. Listen, to find good people to talk to, find mentors, find good friends, find people whose path or whose way of being, whose expression you do perceive to be full and authentic. Talk to them and start to get ideas, but give voice to that voice inside you that's nagging at you, saying, there's more for you to do here. There's more for you to contribute.
Oh, I love that. It's funny. I honor that also sense, not just the sense of peace, because I'm very familiar of doing a lot and feeling very overwhelmed, like feeling the stress of it, feeling the stress, like worry and fear. And right now I'm doing something very different, and it has its own challenges and demands, but I feel very at peace. And I know that not everybody on my journey can resonate with what I'm doing because it's so different than what I did before. But internally, maybe it's not a voice, but it's that peace sense that I'm using as my compass as well.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, I think, the first big transition. I mean, really, my first big transition was going and living and working abroad, and really like mastering a language enough to hold the same level, professional level, and in the foreign language, and assimilating, managing people. That was really my first big transition. Was that foreign land? How do I land and how do I adapt here, and stayed a number of years. And then the next one was leaving corporate and moving to nonprofit, right? And that was more of the meaning. The moving internationally too was something I really wanted to do. And then this later, as I matured, it was more about meaning. What's my voice? What's my, like at the end of my life, if I say, here's what I did with my talent, is this enough? Am I on the right path? And then the latest is to the startup world, this tech startup, because in order to do this in a scalable way, it's tech enabled. So I now have a tech startup. And in this transition, I have to say, like, peace is not my overriding experience. I'm just going to acknowledge that. And in each of those transitions, there is a like a fulfillment and an aliveness that always comes forward for me, and like stretching, challenging, bringing me more alive, really feeling myself more in the world. There's more of me showing up through that stretching. And the stretching sometimes feels like stretching, literally, like my skin is stretching, or my boundaries are stretching, or what I think I'm capable of is stretching. And so peace is not always my overriding experience on my side.
Absolutely. And I think that it's not the sense that it's always easy, like peaceful, like, a monk praying, but it's that sense like this is not, I'm not hesitating about doing it, that it feels like what I'm doing is right. So that peace in the sense like, hey, I feel like this is the right path for me. And by honoring that, I feel that peace. And I'm curious, what were maybe some of the biggest challenges along the way? So what did you have to face? And could you share, do you feel like it was worth it for you?
Oh my gosh. I mean, in which transition? In this latest,
Whichever
or
one you
just
want to pick, like
generally?
as your entrepreneur, like finding your inner entrepreneur and like honoring that, what were some of the biggest challenges you had to overcome, whether it's mentally or just, starting the business logistically, and how do you feel about it being, worth it now at this point?
Yeah, so absolutely completely worth it. I wouldn't give it up for anything. I wouldn't take it back. I wouldn't change it. And it's so much more of my voice and me is alive and in the world. And I'm always aware of that like, I feel like, everything I've done is on the table, especially now, and what I'm doing is being used in some way and makes sense. Everything I've ever done in my life makes sense in this context and gets used. Like every lesson I've ever learned, anytime I've ever tripped or fallen, and I would say the toughest thing is, I would say in the first transitions were like giving that voice, that nagging voice, there's more, Laura, there's more here, there's more for you to offer, there's more for you to say, there's more for you to experience yourself being, like getting past my limiting beliefs about, really? Is that true? Can I do it? Oh my gosh, the uncertainty, and just like daring and deciding I'm worth it. That honestly was the biggest,
Oh yeah.
the biggest challenge.
Do you have any advice for somebody who is in that? Who's like, oh my gosh, yes, I hear that. That sounds amazing, but I'm right there in the moment. It's very uncomfortable. Any advice for those people?
Again, find good people to talk to, find supports. In my case, I did personal development work, to like figure out, okay, if there's more, what is it? And what is it that's pushing me? So I joined a very supportive meditation community. I was part of that for a long time. That was right at the same time I was transitioning over to nonprofit. And I learned a lot too about what we humans are capable of in groups when we share intentions with people and have this accountability mechanism, how much more becomes possible for us in terms of behavior change and moving past concepts we have of ourselves, whatever, what I call limiting beliefs.
I love that. It's funny. I so align to that. And sometimes I think even just having one person in your life that you find that you can share that, who believes in you, who aligns to your journey is so powerful. So it doesn't always have to be, some big community. It could be whatever comes to you. And my coach I recently started working with said this really catchy thing, which I really like, is that when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
Yeah.
I thought that was so beautiful. I know I've heard it before, but it's so beautiful. Like when life is ready for you to move on and you're ready, like something comes about, whether it's that teacher, formally, or just things that come about and share something insightful for you on your journey, wherever you're at. So that's really beautiful. And you were starting to talk about this exciting times of AwakeTeams. So here you are, you mentioned you're getting this feedback that, hey, everything is great, but what the heck? We don't understand what's happening. So how did you decide to not just take that feedback, but then really create something absolutely different and unique? Like, what was that process like?
Yeah, so absolutely. So what I was doing prior to COVID was completely different. It was more of a mindfulness based emotional intelligence workshop, like one-off workshops that were very popular, loved. And what I'm doing now is very different. It's developing interpersonal skills. So how do we actually behave with each other? I'm not tackling mindfulness. So many people are doing that so well, and honestly, I wouldn't know how to measure it. So what AwakeTeams does is develop these interpersonal behaviors, these interpersonal skills that enable us to show up more fully, enable us to bring our voices, and we do it with the people that who we interact with, who are on our team, and who we're also on the same road towards some objective, right? As a team, there's something we need to accomplish together. So the measurement aspect is what I was after. And so I work with a brilliant data scientist. I got good advisors early on. I did a tech accelerator program because I didn't come from the startup world, didn't have a tech background other than having done this emotional intelligence training in the tech world, knowing it's wanted and needed, that these social and emotional skills are there can be a gap. I still experience that now that I'm actually in the tech world. I still experience that. Like I feel like I'm up to good work. This is needed work. And I did a tech accelerator program as the first thing I did. So I guess that's sort of my instinct, is like find some kind of community, get myself on a learning path, and start to validate, is this in reality what I think it is, right? Because sometimes I have ideas about things, and then when I start to do them in reality, it ends up my expectations don't quite meet. It's not the same thing. And so, which is great, right? You still, an idea can be inspiration. And then and find people to talk to, and then get out and start to do something to test the hypothesis. Like, is this it? Is this, and what are the signals I'm getting back? Does this seem to be sparking in a way? Am I coming alive, and am I getting good signals back that I'm onto something, right? Or good people are showing up.
How do you follow that? Is this similar to like market research where you're doing surveys and interviews and formal feedback, or is there another process that has worked for you on this journey?
Oh yeah, no, nothing so sophisticated, or nothing so. As much as I like data too, it's more like life data. Like, get out and just start taking steps towards something. I mean, I remember when I transitioned to nonprofit, I started volunteer teaching because I thought I was looking for an education nonprofit. I ended up sort of getting into an education. It was more of a neuroscience, mental health research foundation, but the translation of the research was educational. So I started volunteering. I did this amazing. I was a volunteer in peace games at a public school in Harlem in New York City, and I did that for a year. I would go in once a week and teach children. They actually gave me a pre-K class, so 3 and 4 year olds.
Adorable.
How to resolve conflict, how to build a team, like how to learn to trust each other. It's very similar to what AwakeTeams does at the adult level, honestly. So, I mean, we're not using strictly a games curriculum, but that's a concrete example of like market research, you could say, is like find some volunteering opportunity. Well, right, I was still doing work that I was getting paid for. So I knew it was going to take some time to find the right place to land. And, switching sectors was not an immediate, like, boom, done. So yeah, finding, and then paying attention. Like, is this bringing me more alive? Is it landing well? What are the signals back? And in the startup case, it was like in the tech accelerator, like, it was crazy intense. Like really one of the most challenging things I've done. And I stayed in it because I kept like just paying attention week by week. Like, well, I'm learning. This is good. And I had to do these pitches, and I was getting good enough feedback to say, yeah, you're onto something. Yeah, because you go through these constant like, can you continue in this program or not? But basically every week until you finish.
I love the mixture of reflecting on yourself, like what signal are you getting inside of yourself? Because a lot of times we talk about like just the data, but I think it's a holistic picture, right? Where you understand like where's life guiding you, what's appearing, how can you test ideas that just feel right, and kind of combine that with also, you said, the technical accelerator. What is the technical accelerator? Could you share a little more? It sounds amazing. So
Sorry, what is
not
the technical?
The technical accelerator. So you mentioned, I thought when you first mentioned that there's just like technical courses like to ramp up your technical skills, but you're mentioning there's also pitching.
Yes. So this was an accelerator program. So it's a pre-seed, what they call a pre-seed accelerator program. So kind of like how I described the foundation grants that were proof of concept funding before these neuroscientists would often go on to get bigger grants. So pre-seed is when you really, all you had to have was an idea on paper, and they give you an entrepreneurial assessment. It's called the Founder Institute. So it's an accelerator program, 14 weeks, I believe. And 80 of us started, 20 of us finished. It's super intense. People either self-select out because they realize along the way, like, oh yeah, okay, this isn't for me, or this isn't right. And you have to do these constant, like, you have to do the work they ask you to do. You have to keep showing, I've got the grit. Yep, I'm in, I mean it. And you have to do these pitches, and you have to be rated well enough in order to be able to finish the accelerator.
That's amazing. What is maybe the top thing you learned about your pitch or strategy around your pitch through that, if you can share?
Oh my gosh. I mean, it because I was so early, it helped me create a pitch. It helped me create AwakeTeams. I mean, really, I'm so grateful that I did that program. The most significant thing for me personally was I was forced to talk about something before I had it down. And that is so against my nature, so against all the training I had in my corporate life. Like, you don't present until you know what it is and you have 100 backups at least to prove every point and respond to any question. And so I felt like I was pushed all the time. Like, nope, you're not going to get it right. The way you're going to get it right is to expose it to people and learn to take in the feedback, integrate what feels right, and then go out and get more feedback, integrate what feels right. This continual iterative process was so powerful for my personal development, because it's like this constant edge of vulnerability. Like, no, it's not perfect yet. I can't present it. And what ended up happening, I also, like, as we went along, I had to do a certain high number of potential customer interviews. So I had to find them, and sometimes under really like high time pressure, like within a few days, and spin it around and pitch in that way to a potential customer and ask for input and feedback. And that ended up creating what AwakeTeams is. I had an idea on paper, and what's in market now with these customers and the data is very different from what my initial sketched idea was.
Oh, that's amazing. Question for you. I'm curious. So you said that about 1/4 of the people succeeded through this course. Just from your own speculation, like, what do you think is the difference between somebody who continued and finished or somebody who dropped out? Like, was there something about?
I mean,
them?
I know, like, grit and resilience, and like really believing in what you're doing. I really believe we need these interpersonal skills, We need them in the world. We need, like, I have skin in the game in the corporate world and in organizational life. I spent many, many years in organizations, right? So I feel so strongly that I have something to bring here that isn't, there's a need in the market that isn't currently being met. And that need is really, I believe very strongly that we need this now. And that, it's like this reservoir of energy that I have never had access to before. I feel like when I went to the nonprofit, definitely absolutely the right choice for me. It was personally meaningful, complete, very stimulating. And I had this whole new learning curve in neuroscience and the fulfilling, like, feeling like, wow, what I do really does matter to me personally. That was a really important shift for me. And now it's just like times 10 because it's mine and I'm on that vulnerability edge all the time. And that belief that I have something to offer here and good people keep showing up. I keep getting good signals, and the world needs it.
I love that. And here's one thing I hear about people who are starting this journey is they dread showing themselves out there. They dread about starting to post about what they're doing and, putting more of their skin and kind of themselves through whatever endeavor they're putting out into the world. Do you have any advice for those people who just like, oh no, I'm going to have to put more of myself out there. What are people going to think? Anything you've learned that could help them?
Gosh, I walk that edge too of like when I do marketing and when I don't, and mostly it's bandwidth. It's how do I prioritize my time? And so as far as like creating your own personal brand, I don't think I have a lot of advice or recommendation to give on that. As far as like just daring, just start to take steps. And you're going to just, pay attention. What is this doing for me? Am I feeling more alive, more energized, more of my voice is here? Or is this maybe not right? Was that too far? Is this now overwhelming? Or is less of my voice here? So just start to step out, start to do something. And, I did that Accelerator program that pushed me. Like, you have to do this many customer interviews by this date, and we need to see it. We're going to like validate that they happened, and you're going to write up summaries. And I was willing, so that's another thing. I was willing because I believe in what I'm doing. I also am stubborn, and I was like, you're not going to intimidate me. I am going to finish this thing.
I love it. And so then you finish the program. What do you do next from that? Now you feel confident, you have pitch, you potentially have customers. How do you then create the concept? It's one thing to feel good about this is happening, this is interesting.
Yeah.
What do you do now to create this?
So that's where the muscle, this grit muscle that was actually built over that 14-week program, when every week I would come back to myself and I would be like, why am I doing this? This is really kind of crazy. Like, and the answer kept being yes, like, do this next week. Like, yeah, I was learning so much. And so something happened over those 14 weeks, every week coming back, like, why am I doing this? Is this worth it? And how am I feeling and what are the signals? And I got a muscle was developed that I just keep doing that. You just keep doing that. If you don't know how to do something, find somebody who does and ask and then try and then start to do it and stay really open to feedback, stay really open to learning. And that, I don't know, just like grit and willingness. And this, I think in any big transition, it's also, you have to be willing to relinquish sort of the expert stance. I mean, you want to bring your confidence and your strength. And if you're transitioning into something new, by default, you're not an expert on all of it. And that can be a really uncomfortable place. And so much is possible there when we allow ourselves not to know everything. Like, oh, I'm not going to have the perfect presentation. I'm not going to be able to tell this customer exactly what my product is and how it does it and how it's amazing. Yeah. And then people's like voices actually get included, and it becomes so much bigger because those people actually are able to help, because I'm not sort of like armored. Like I know how to do this, and I know I'm supposed to, and I've got it. Here it is. It's like, oh, I have this idea, and here's what I think, and I'm willing to do this to find out. And what do you think? And then people really chime in.
Oh, I love this. I love all of this kind of, I just see this journey unfold. And thank you so much for sharing just like the ins and outs and the full process for you. And now say you feel comfortable. How did you attract this amazing talent, like this team? So you don't just have a concept, but now you actually have a physical, program that people can experience. How did that happen?
Yeah, so getting the product to market is quite a journey. So I'm bootstrapping, and so people have different pathways in the startup world, and so I didn't have a lot of funding to just go out and hire a team, an amazing team, and so I found really good advisors. That was actually, I had to do that before the Accelerator in order to complete the Accelerator program. I wouldn't have known to do that, so I needed education. I really did. How does one build a startup? How does one manifest an idea? And then it's a long slog. I mean, then it's a long process. And that continual, like, why am I doing this? Is this right? Am I expressing more? What are the signals back? It's constant. It really is.
Yeah. And how did you find their technical team? So you said you have this amazing research science. Like, how did you find those people who now are just working with you to build this and like make it a thing?
Yeah. That's still a work in progress. So to date, I mentioned I work with a brilliant data scientist. I also have worked with PhD students. One of those she's now a full PhD. She's graduated, and they, on a part-time contractor basis is the way that this has worked.
Wow.
And so I currently am recruiting, and Anya, you helped me. You helped me redraft that job description, which is now amazing. Like, you brought it to life with your language. And so I've been experimenting. I had a big customer deadline. So they were happening in parallel. I posted for a founding engineer role. Right now that I have traction, I've got marquee customers. Now is the time that I really can write for equity, because now there's demonstration. The company is really worth something. You don't have to just trust me. Like, there's some proof in the pudding, right? Product market fit, right? There's some proof of concept. And so I got amazing candidates. And then I've been experimenting. I've been doing like a series of experiments, as I also had to deliver an important customer deadline. And so I did one experiment. It wasn't the right fit, and now I'm talking to candidates again, and experiment. Listen to the signals and iterate. Yeah. So I'm still actually looking for that founding engineer role.
Ooh, so this is perfect timing. When this goes out in the world, reach out to Lauren. Maybe there's an opportunity here for you still to be part of this amazing venture. And we talked so much about the journey. Thank you for being so authentic. I think an important takeaway from that too is that you have to test things out. That also includes the people that are working with you. Too often we either just like I'm going to do it all by myself, and sometimes that's possible, sometimes it's not. But it's also good to have an open mind that somebody may not work out, but you're always learning something about it. I'm sure that even though this wasn't the right match, you learned something about what would be a better fit for this opportunity, right? So coming with it like not defeated and not, too positive, but having that balanced approach of like always learning is going to be very helpful and empowering. And so I'm excited for whoever comes next to help empower this team. And one thing I want to also give space is to understand how the heck do you have data around our team performance? Like, how the heck does Awake Team measure this growth process?
Yeah, so in each 3-month module, we develop and name 5 specific skills. So that's really important in learning. Actually, like, to say emotional intelligence isn't enough. But so we name 5 specific skills, and that's what we're developing over the course of 3 months. 3 months is long enough for behavior change, right? It's a minimum, but it is long enough, right, to create good new habit, especially when we're in our team environment and held accountable. And we get data to measure how we're doing. We get feedback. And so those 5 specific skills, because these are interpersonal, right? We're in the social emotional realm, trust building, communication, collaboration. They only make sense from the perspective of the other. Because I'm building trust, like I may think I'm awesome, and I get to say that, I get to rate myself. And what really matters is these people with whom I need to build trust. What do they say? How often do they see me demonstrating these behaviors? So we use team member anonymous assessment. So the people you're on the learning journey with, right? Separate from performance management, performance appraisal, separate. It's not a 360. It's like on this learning journey, data is a part of the learning model. And so we assess ourselves on the 5 skills each month, and then we assess each other. And then we have a proprietary algorithm that does 2 things. So it generates a progress report. Each team has their own baseline. And then every month we redo that assessment. So there end up being 4 data points in each 3-month module, because there's a kickoff, beginning of month 2, beginning of month 3, and a close. And so from the baseline for each team, you see what's happening with the skills. And then each team member anonymously gets some of their own individual data. So they can see, all right, where do I need to double down? Or where is there really a gap between where I thought I was awesome and wait a minute, maybe I should talk to my colleagues and ask for some more specific feedback so I understand. And you also, our algorithm then assigns a personalized learning sequence of bite-sized learning each week. So you come together as a team synchronously. It's bound in time. It's not on demand in that way. You've committed these team session days for them. That's synchronous. And then in between those monthly synchronous sessions, you receive every week a micro module, a 5-minute bite-sized learning. And each team member gets the order they need the most based on that data. And then the team performance is the team rating the team across 5 performance metrics that we define very specifically. And it's all research backed, right? Like these are the skills that build trust. And so it's a research backed curriculum. And then these are the performance metrics that link to that link to these interpersonal skills. And so similarly, from each team's baseline, you see every month what's happening.
Wow, I love it. The work in me just gets excited about all those reflection points, how personal it is, how measurable it is. And are there any core parts of the curriculum that really make an impact? So when you're thinking about it, you said it's research-based. What are maybe some core principles that are research-based that are making an impact in this space?
We pull from a lot of different research. So there's neuroscience, right? That just the fact of neuroplasticity, and that is happening, right? This capacity of our brain to rewire or not, right? And we have influence over that based on environments we choose to put ourselves in, based on behavior, because it's not a closed loop, our brain. It's also based on how we're behaving and what kind of environments we're acting in. So that's sort of the basis of it, that behavior change is possible. And then we pull a lot from social psychology. So there's a social psychologist on the team, and also industrial and organizational psychology. And it varies on the skill and the practice, because it's a very application-based program, and the applications, the practices, the interactive exercises are also research-backed.
Amazing. I love all of that. And when you start at the beginning, I think you were mentioning there was some kind of White House training, right? Did I mishear that?
Yes. So yes.
Just a question on how the heck is it you getting all this attention? This is just starting, and I'm just so proud of the recognition that you've already received, and I'm excited for what's ahead. How the heck did all of this happen already? Just share how do you promote yourself?
Thank you, because I guess maybe it's to any founder. I always feel like, gosh, I'm not far enough, fast enough. So thank you for that. Thank you.
You're doing amazing. Pat yourself, huge pat on the back right there.
Oh, thank you. Yes. So, it's hard work, honestly, like business to business sales. So I'm the chief salesperson. I'm the chief most persons, right? Because I work primarily with contractors still. So as I've found sales coaches. I've gotten, right. I was, sorry, I'm like, blah, blah, blah. I'm kidding. As soon as I start to say sales coaches, and it's B2B sales is challenging. uh, even though I am a former professional marketing person, right? I know a lot about brand management. I know in consumer packaged goods is particularly competitive. You have essentially the same products out in the marketplace, and you're working really hard to strategically and creatively differentiate them. And so it's actually very sophisticated work. That kind of marketing, and and also managing profit and loss statements, so financial acumen. And so I have marketing expertise. That's what I mean to say. And sales is very different. And so I've gotten a couple of sales coaches. There is a science to business sales. And so how I mean, there's validation for the need for sure, right? That there is an unmet need in the marketplace. So there's a recognition that we need more of these interpersonal skills, that our teams are either they're not productive, they're not as productive as they used to be, or they're not producing enough, or they're not simply not cohesive. Like our people have been working remotely and hybrid, and they're not as connected as they used to be, and they're not innovating as much. So those are the key triggers, are like there's a recognition that productivity, this sense of cohesion and or mental health and innovation are down, and somebody in the leadership buys into like proactively developing interpersonal skills, and that team will work, right? Like interpersonal skills as a solution. So you find those people, and you just persist, right? You find those people, you identify a target market, you do experiments. Is this the right sector? Is this the right market? Is this the right title of person that I'm going after? Do you leave enough time for each experiment? Yeah. And then you dig in every time. You learn, you just lean in where there's positive feedback, where the signals are coming back strongly, lean in. And that's how it happened. Like there's no magic wand. There's it's, you do that. And then in certain places, the timing is right. The budget is there. The need is great enough, and boom, it happens. Right. And it really is a numbers game, sales. It's like, you have to be talking to enough people that the conversion rate, that it ends up working.
Oh, I love that. And I'm curious. So now we have all this experience, and you shared a little bit about the B2B process. And one thing it does make me reflect on is my time at Meta. So before I started all of this, I was at Meta and I was working remotely for 3 years. And I could definitely see how, although I was really grateful for the opportunity, you definitely feel that change of pace that can have on your dynamic as a team when you're remote. So I love that there's a tool from the employee side, but I could also see just what a value add that would be for an employer to share that they are doing this work, especially as layoffs are looming, the morale is low. There's so many stressors that have happened throughout COVID and whatnot. So I love that there's this tool both from the employee perspective to give them a sense of hope, no matter what they're doing, remote or not remote, that there's things they can do to connect. And also from an employer standpoint, that there's things they can do to help really bring some morale boost, kind of sense of connection. So love that. And speaking of that, are there any results that you feel comfortable or can share? Like if this is, a transformation that maybe speaks to the results that could be possible?
Well, so what I can say is that in each 3-month module, we're seeing a 15% improvement in performance. So that's from baseline. The skills are getting acquired. So, right, because we see it, we measure. And I would say qualitatively, it's proving to be a really good support for connection and challenging interpersonal dynamics. So, that's more qualitative when I do my monthly check-in calls with customers, right? That the feedback that I'm getting, like one thing is we see the data. I'm like, okay, it's having, it works. It's having a hit. And it's like qualitatively supporting this sense of being more connected and getting to know people outside of the transaction of work, right? Like we're there to accomplish a goal. We need the transaction of business or the transaction of getting stuff done. And we like to do that as humans, generally speaking. We like to contribute, get things done, collaborate. And we also have this chance to connect with each other outside of that kind of transaction. And that's proving really enriching for people.
I think that's where the deep connections happen, especially like if you change jobs, you will remember the times that you spent not just doing work, but like how you interacted outside of that. So I love that we're focusing on that, even while you are connecting with those people in the day-to-day tasks. I'm sure that you will work better together if you understand each other better as humans and also find ways to show up more authentically. And on that kind of wrap-up note, I'm curious, what are you most excited about for what's ahead for you and Awake Teams?
What I'm most excited about is continuing to grow, continuing to develop more of these 3-month modules, right? And getting feedback still from customers, and then deciding, okay, which one's next? What's the next best 3-month module? Oh, within this domain of trust, communication, collaboration, continuing to grow, getting a more substantial team in place. Right? Because they're equally important. It's like the inside signal that you noted earlier. It's like the inside and the outside, and it's sort of like that. I feel like that in the business. Like the inside is like the team, like who am I collaborating with, and what kind of aliveness and energy is that bringing? And then what is the need that we're meeting, and how do we go meet more? How do we scale this and really make more of an impact?
Oh, I'm excited for what's ahead of you. I'm sure there'll be a lot more accolades, and I'm just looking forward to seeing you because you've shared so much personal growth. Like it's just not your business growth; it's your personal growth, and you've dedicated so much time, energy, and effort to be resilient, to be good. And here, people can just sense your kind human energy too. Like here you are making all this happen. You mentioned growing in sales, and people have this conception like if you're sales, you're like salesy. You have a certain look and feel to you, and there's nothing like that. So I'm here very happy that we're challenging these misconceptions of what this whole process can look like. So thank you so much for showing authentically, sharing your key learnings, the challenges along the way. Is there anything you want to add before we wrap up with 3 rapid fire questions?
No, you've done an awesome job, Anya. Really, thank you. Yeah, thank you for creating this space. Congratulations on your own transition and daring to get your voice out into the world more. My experience, like it's working, and it's a great voice to have out more in the world.
Thank you, Laura. I'm grateful that we've connected. Okay, let's jump into the 3 rapid fire questions. Just short response or what first thing that comes to mind. So let's start with favorite piece of sales advice.
It's a science. I keep at it. Track, count, experiment, learn. But it's a science. Like it's numbers.
Okay. One book that every entrepreneur should read.
That's a hard one because I actually think you have to get out and do. So that's a hard one. I mean, I have read a bunch of books, and it's not what sticks with me as like the most powerful thing. It's the get out and do, and let yourself be on that vulnerable edge. Ask for feedback.
I love it. I think that's even better answer. So that's even better. Okay. Last but not least, in the positive sense, going off track is
Daring to find your own way. Find your way. Trust the voice. Dare to take the step. Become who you are. That's a saying from Pablo Picasso. Become who you are.
Oh, and we know him pretty well, so it probably makes sense to listen to that. Laura, well, thank you so much. You were amazing. I appreciate your inspiration. I also want to just take some space to also do a quick shout out to the nonprofit Ready to Empower, which supports women worldwide. They are now celebrating the 10-year anniversary, and they're raising $50,000 by December 8th. So if to all of our listeners who feel inspired, who want to make a little difference in the world and have some generous feel right now, I would so appreciate if you check the link below and dedicate whatever feels right in your heart to this cause. So thank you. And to all listeners, also thank you just for investing your time to listen to this episode. I hope you found some inspiration wherever you are in your journey. There are so many takeaways. And the biggest thing is listen to your gut. Trust that inner voice. Amazing things can happen. And sure, it won't be easy, but it seems like it's going to be quite worth it from Laura's journey. And Laura, any final words for our audience?
Just dare, right? We've only got one time around, as far as we know. Life, like let's live, and do. I mean, and then my slant on that is let's be the best humans we can be. Let's just see what are we capable of.
I love it. Okay, friends, that's it for us. And as always, let's take over the world together. Right off track. Thank you for checking us out. Bye, Laura. Great to speak to you.
Bye. Thanks, Anya.